Chapter 1203. Every time Yun Mujuan checked the state treasury, he was grinning from ear to ear. Although his salary had been deducted for more than 30 years, he was still very happy. Her Majesty the Empress is a good person. She knows that I don't have a salary and am very poor. She actually ordered people to send me rice, ready-made clothes, shoes, and socks every month, as well as fresh vegetables every day. Yun Mujuan closed the account book and beamed. Your Majesty is wise to marry such a good woman as your Empress. The heavens bless my Northern Yang. Time passed in the blink of an eye. It had been 10 years since the last exchange banquet. The exchange banquet was held once every 10 years. This year, it was Northern Yang's turn. As early as a month ago, people from various countries had set off for Northern Yang. The envoy from Nanshu was Shangguan Jing. He was purely annoyed by the Tang Jiao, but when he looked at her face, he couldn't bear to scold her. It just so happened that there was an exchange banquet, so he asked for an imperial edict to come. He had forgotten that at this time, the Tang Jiao's memory should be awake. Not long after Shangguan Jing left, she woke up and barged into the palace like a madwoman. Shangguan Yi knew it was her, but he couldn't bear to blame her. When the Tang Jiao threw herself into his arms with tears in her eyes, Shangguan Yi no longer felt like he had regained what he had lost. Your Majesty, I finally remember. Your Majesty, do you want to take this concubine back to the palace? This concubine still wants to live in Jiaoling Palace. Shangguan Yi was thinking about how to arrange the Tang Jiao when he heard about Jiaoling Palace. He immediately remembered the past and refused without thinking. You can't live in that place. Why? In short, you can't live there. Then where will this concubine live? Shangguan Yi didn't want to take the Tang Jiao back to the palace anymore. You are now Jing Wang's princess consort. This is something the whole world knows. We can't take you back to the palace. As for the truth, only he knew. In the end, the Tang Jiao left in tears. Shangguan Yi was still worried and could only send someone to follow her. He felt very helpless in his heart. If he had known that this day would come, he would have treated her well. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Some people would only know how good they were after losing them. The exchange banquet began, and the ambassadors and rulers of the various nations entered the venue. Then, the Northern Yang Emperor and Empress appeared hand in hand. When they saw Tang Guo's extremely beautiful face, they all felt that it was very familiar when they witnessed the envoy who gifted the beauty 10 years ago. They had never forgotten that face from that day. Among them, Shangguan Jing was the most shocked. If not for his efforts to restrain himself, he would have stood up and shouted. The other person who was shocked was Country King Chen. Compared to 10 years ago, he was much greasier. While he was exclaiming in admiration, he felt Beitang Hua's cold gaze and hurriedly looked away. He cursed in his heart. Motherfucker. So the Northern Yang envoy who dragged him to drink was actually the Northern Yang Emperor. He was no fool. He immediately guessed what had happened back then. He was wondering why the emissary of the Northern Yang Kingdom would try to worm his way into being friends with him. It turned out that the emissary had taken a fancy to that beauty. That group of bandits was probably also arranged by the other party, right? Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence? But so what if he knew the truth? He couldn't win against the Northern Yang Kingdom. He couldn't win against them in the past, and he couldn't win against them now. He could only sit here obediently and drink. He glanced at Shangguan Jing, who was sitting not far away. There were some things that he was well aware of, but there was no need to say it out. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1204. But it was still okay to sit aside and watch the show. Shangguan Jing was very sure that the Empress of Northern Yang was Tang Guo. The person they all thought was dead, she clearly saw him, but there was only unfamiliarity in her eyes, as if she didn't know him. Shangguan Jing was absent-minded throughout the banquet. When the banquet ended, he left the palace in a daze. After leaving the palace, he immediately sent people to investigate the matter. Who was the Empress of Northern Yang? Was it her? The last news he got was that the Empress of Northern Yang was indeed not from Northern Yang, and it matched the date of her death. Through various details, Shangguan Jing was very sure that the Empress of Northern Yang was really Tang Guo. He cried tears of joy on the spot, but quickly remembered that she was now the Empress of Northern Yang, and the way she looked at him was still very unfamiliar, and he felt very uneasy. He heard that the Empress was extremely wealthy in Northern Yang, and had opened shops everywhere that belonged to her. 1 ton and 1 ti. The Empress would often leave the palace, and Shangguan Jing had been waiting. On the day that Tangguo left the palace, he secretly went forward to meet her, wanting to ask her how she had been all these years, what had happened back then, and since she was still alive, why didn't she go back? You are the envoy of Nanshu, Jing Wangye, right? I saw you at the banquet that night. Tangguo said in a distant and polite tone. All of Shangguan Jing's enthusiasm seemed to have been splashed with a basin of cold water. Jing Wangye, is there anything important that you want to talk to me about? Nanshu is rich in resources. If it's about trading, you can directly communicate with His Majesty. Shangguan Jing subconsciously said, don't you remember me? Remember you? Tangguo raised her eyebrows and smiled faintly. I have never met Wangye, how can I remember you? Shangguan Jing carefully identified, and didn't see any flicker in her eyes, nor any familiarity. It could be seen that she really didn't remember him. You were originally called Tangguo. Tangguo laughed. I was originally called Tangguo. Wangye, you don't need to tell me my name. So you are from Nanshu Nation. Shangguan Jing was indignant. You should be the eldest daughter of a minister in Nanshu Nation. You. He thought of many things that he had done to her in the past and was momentarily at a loss for words. Luminescent King, I am now the Empress of the Northern Yang country. I have indeed lost many of my memories. From the moment I was born, the person who accompanied me was my husband, the Emperor of the Northern Yang country, Beitang Hua. I'm living a good life now. As for the past, I'm not interested in learning about it. Shangguan Jing was unwilling to accept it and blurted out, then don't you care about your family? Because of your death, the minister has been sad for half a month. His health is not as good as before. Have you ever thought of going back to see him? Also, your sister, Prince Jing, do you have anything else to tell me other than this? You should have been deceived by Beitang Hua. He deceived you into becoming the Empress. He definitely didn't tell you about the past. Shangguan Jing said very anxiously. Tangguo pursed her lips into a smile. He has never lied to me. I can tell at a glance who is lying to me. Also, he told me everything you said just now. Moreover, it's more than what you said. For example, my identity was indeed the eldest daughter of a minister, but because of your selfishness, my memory was changed and I became my sister, and I was sent to the palace. The Emperor of Nanshu Nation, because he saw that I was not the real Tang Jiao, he mocked me. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1205. Even at the exchange banquet 10 years ago, you directly used me to exchange for a lot of treasures. You didn't tell me all these, right? You. Shangguan Jing's face instantly paled, and he was so shocked that he took a few steps back. Are you curious why he told me everything? Because he is the person who cares about me the most in this world. Even if I have forgotten my past memories, he still told me the truth and never hid anything from me. Jing Wangye, is this the truth? Shangguan Jing wanted to say that it wasn't true. But it was true, it was something they really did. As long as you come back, I will treat you well, and we can start over. But I don't remember you. I don't remember the past grudges. Tangguo said lightly. And, from your words, you admit to doing those things? Since that's the case, why should I give up being Northern Yang's Empress, ignore the person who loves me, and go back with someone like you who hurt me? Just because you said you can treat me well, and we can start over, I have to give up everything and go back with you? Jing Wangye, who do you think you are? Even if you are gold, silver, and treasures, you fell into a cesspool. You didn't even wipe yourself clean, and you dare to say these words. Aren't you taking things for granted? Shangguan Jing wanted to say something, but Tangguo said to the people here, I'm not in a good mood, I won't look at the shops. Let's go back to the palace. Yes, Your Highness. System, is the host acting pretentious? You're not allowed to leave. You have to go back to Nanshu with me. That's where you belong. Shangguan Jing shouted, and went up to grab Tangguo's wrist. He didn't expect her to react so quickly, and slapped his face with the back of her hand. The slap was especially loud. I didn't expect the Jing Wangye of Nanshu to be a lecher. Men, beat this lecher for me, and chase him out of Northern Yang. He is not allowed to come to Northern Yang in the future. Every time he comes, I'll beat him. Yes, Your Highness. Many experts appeared together, and before Shangguan Jing could react, they went up to capture him, and fiercely punched his abdomen a few times. As he beat him, he said, "How dare you? How dare you molest the Empress? You deserve to be beaten. Seeing that you are Nanshu country's luminescent prince, Her Highness only ordered us to beat you up before banishing you from Northern Yang country. All of you spectators, listen up. This fellow actually dares to disrespect Her Highness. In the future, you must not let him enter Northern Yang's territory. Her Majesty the Empress said to beat him every time she sees him in the future." Shangguan Jing was escorted to walk on the street. The onlookers were not ordinary people. They were just watching the show. But when she heard what he was doing, she threw the thing in her hand at him. "What, King Jing? So it's just a lecher who wants to take advantage of the Empress. Such people must be forbidden from entering the Northern Yang country. See if I don't smash him to death. Just by looking at his face, I can tell he's not a good person." King Jing's men wanted to save him. However, Beitang Hua's men were even faster. Not long after, the uniform army directly surrounded them. Beitang Hua appeared right after. "Luminescent Prince, the Northern Yang Kingdom does not welcome you. One day, I will take her away." Shangguan Jing said stubbornly. He would take her away. Beitang Hua narrowed his eyes and sneered. "Along the way, you must take good care of Luminescent Prince. Don't neglect him. You must let Luminescent Prince return to Nanshu alive." Chapter 1206. Yes, Your Majesty. Coming to Nanshu alive meant that he just needed to keep his life. This brat actually dared to have designs on the Empress. He didn't even see if they agreed or not. The Emperor finally had the Empress, but someone actually dared to kidnap her. Let's see if they don't teach him a lesson. When Shangguan Jing left the city, not only was he hit with eggs and vegetables, he was also spat on. The person holding him comforted him. "Don't hate these ordinary people. It's because you did wrong. You could have snatched anyone, but you actually chose our Empress." The Empress was a national treasure in the Northern Yang Kingdom. Since she came 10 years ago, every family had meat to eat almost every day. They didn't have to starve anymore. No matter which country's seeds were brought in, the Empress was able to find a way to overcome the acclimatization and successfully plant them. Don't you think such an Empress was a treasure? Moreover, the Empress's shops were spread across many countries. Weren't the talents she recruited selected from the ordinary people? Shangguan Jing was greeted by people all the way. It took him a month to finally return to Nanshu. Shangguan Yi was also very surprised. Why was he expelled by the people of Northern Yang? He originally wanted to blame him, but he saw that Shangguan Jing was covered with injuries. His face was yellow and his body was thin. It could be seen that he suffered a lot along the way. When he was sent back, he even fainted. When he woke up, Shangguan Yi asked, "Jing Wang, what did you do in Northern Yang? Why were you expelled?" He felt that Shangguan Jing shouldn't be someone who didn't know his limits. Shangguan Jing's eyes were dazed for a moment. When he saw Shangguan Yi's face clearly, he woke up. He originally didn't want to tell Shangguan Yi the whereabouts of Tang Guo. But as a prince of Nanshu, it wasn't easy for him to snatch back the Empress of Northern Yang. Therefore, he could only join hands with Shangguan Yi to snatch her back. "Imperial brother, I saw her." "Ha!" Shangguan Yi frowned. "Who?" Shangguan Jing thought of the person he saw. When he saw her, the feelings that had been hidden deep in his heart finally couldn't be suppressed and instantly sprayed out. Unknowingly, she actually held such an important position in his heart. "My luminescent princess." Shangguan Jing said, "I saw her, Imperial brother," he said somewhat excitedly. "It's really her. She's not dead. She's still alive." Thinking of her identity, his eyes dimmed again. "But I have no way to bring her back." Shangguan Yi finally heard it clearly. He grabbed Shangguan Jing's collar, ignoring the other's injuries, and asked nervously, "What did you say?" "Royal brother, it's really her. She's now the Northern Yang Empire's empress. I don't know why, but she doesn't remember the past. She doesn't want to go with me. Brother, let's work together. We must bring her back. She is my luminescent princess. How can she become the empress of Northern Yang?" Shangguan Yi asked a lot of questions. After asking several times, he finally confirmed that Tang Guo is still alive. However, she was now the Northern Yang's empress. Hearing Shangguan Jing's words, he also said, "All right, let's work together. She is my imperial concubine, so she should return to Nanshu Nation. When she comes back, we will definitely treat her well." Both of them were very happy. They were immersed in their own joy and completely ignored each other. Chapter 1207. Guo Guo, I'm afraid they won't be satisfied and will think of a way to snatch you away. The awe-inspiring Beitang Hua was currently hugging Tang Guo's waist. He buried his head in her neck and asked in a low voice, "You won't be snatched away by them, right?" Tang Guo patted his incomparably handsome face and pinched it. Beitang Hua raised his head like a pitiful puppy. His resentful appearance amused her. "Ah Hua, do you think my taste is so bad that I can't live a good life and insist on going back to suffer?" Beitang Hua's heart relaxed as he hugged her tightly. He held her face and kissed her more than 10 times. System. Blocked. Blocked. Stuffing him with dog food every day. I really can't take it anymore. Tang Guo touched her cheeks and picked up his sleeve to wipe her face in disgust. It's all saliva. I'll be more careful when I kiss next time. There definitely won't be any saliva. Beitang Hua hurriedly apologized and said, "Guo Guo, what do you want to do next? I know that you definitely won't let them off, right? 1 ton and 1 tea are your smart." Tang Guo pursed her lips into a smile and said, "Those 2 people are crazy. I'm guessing that it won't be long before they'll definitely ask you to hand me over. Shangguan Yi will use my status as his concubine to ask for you. If he can't get you, they might announce that they're attacking Northern Yang. Our Northern Yang has a strong army and isn't afraid. Guo Guo, you don't have to worry. You've brought countless good news to the citizens of Northern Yang. If they know that Nanshu wants to snatch you away, they'll be willing to put down their farming tools and pick up their blades to fight for you. Don't worry, I can protect you. If you're unwilling, no one can force you to do anything. I know, Ah Hua, you're the best." Beitang Hua's heart warmed. She said he was the best and he only wanted to treat her better. He always felt that no matter how good he treated her, it wasn't good enough. "Ah Hua, can you send someone to help me bring my family over?" Tang Guo's eyes narrowed. Those 2 people aren't good people. If they fail to snatch you away, they'll definitely use some despicable methods. Of course, I think so too. With what they've done in the past, it's perfectly normal for them to threaten you with your family. There's also Tang Jiao. We need to bring her here as well. Her mission is considered complete. There's no need for us to stay there any longer. We might even be hurt by them. Listen to Guo Guo. Tang Guo pinched Beitang Hua's face with both hands, then leaned close to his ear and said, "Ah Hua, you are the emperor of the Northern Yang country. How many people outside are afraid of you? How many ministers are afraid of you? How many rulers of other countries are afraid of you? Why are you so cute in front of me? Aren't you afraid that your reputation will be tarnished if word of this gets out?" "I'm afraid Guo Guo doesn't know." Beitang Hua hugged her in his arms and whispered into her ear, "The entire Northern Yang knows that I'm henpecked, extremely henpecked. Doesn't Guo Guo realize that your words are more effective than mine? Even if it's in the court, if I bring up a new idea, the officials will definitely hesitate and oppose it. But if I say that this idea was discussed with me by the Empress last night, they will quickly say that the Empress is wise and this official agrees. Ha ha ha. Is that true? It's true. Guo Guo, don't you know how many benefits you've brought to our Northern Yang? They're all grateful and respect you." Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1208. He actually picked up such a good person. He must have been a good person in his previous life. So, in this life, he would love her well, spoil her, and raise her to the heavens. Then, He would be a wise monarch, benefiting the people of the world and accumulating merit. He hoped that in his next life, he would be able to meet her again. All right, I believe you. Then, Hua, you must do what I asked you to do well. Tang Hua stood up and stretched out her hand. A box suddenly appeared on her palm. The box that appeared out of thin air shocked Tang Hua. He hurriedly grabbed Tang Hua's small hand and said somewhat nervously, Guogua is really not an ordinary girl. Are you a fairy who descended to the mortal world to undergo a tribulation? Guogua, how many lifetimes are you going to undergo a tribulation? Will you not appear in your next life? Tang Hua looked at his nervous expression, held his face, and kissed his lips. Don't worry, I'm not a fairy, and I'm not here to undergo a tribulation. It's just that there are some special encounters in life. If you're more obedient in your next life, you can still meet me. 1 ton and 1 ti I will. Tang Hua's eyes lit up, and he said very seriously. Tang Hua couldn't help but kiss him, so cute. She opened the box, and there was a thick stack of small paper men inside. This is a puppet man, it was given to me by a mysterious friend. Hua, send someone to pick up my family. In order to not cause any unnecessary trouble, you will definitely ask someone to disguise as them. But Shangguan Jing and Shangguan Yi are both ruthless people, it's better to use a puppet man. How do I use this? Tang Hua didn't refuse. This was because he, Guogua, was kind-hearted and didn't want his people to get hurt. He already said that she should be respected by the entire Northern Yang Kingdom. And only she was worthy of it. Just use a drop of blood and make it look like a living person. Tang Hua found a knife and planned to try it. Tang Hua hurriedly snatched the knife and cut a hole in his hand. Tang Hua glanced at him and took out a small paper man from the box. Tang Hua dripped a drop of blood on it. The little paper man instantly grew and turned into Tang Hua. Tang Hua surrounded the puppet that looked like him and touched its face. He didn't expect to receive a look of disdain from the puppet. He saw clearly that it was a look of disdain. Deity, I am the same as you, I like women and not men. Don't touch me. The puppet spoke, startling Tang Hua. Recalling what she had said, he hurriedly pulled Tang Hua into his arms. Guogua is mine. Don't even think about it. Seeing the puppet's unwilling expression, Tang Hua was a little angry in his heart. His own puppet actually coveted Guogua. Seeing Tang Hua's angry look, Tang Hua said to Tang Hua, drip another drop of blood on him and he'll turn into a little paper man. He can be reused many times. This was a group of puppets created by Kai Xiao, who was an immortal. Puppets made by immortals were, of course, very powerful. Knowing that she wanted to use it in the mortal realm, she specially changed it to be very simple. Tang Hua did as he was told. Sure enough, the puppet turned into a little paper man. His heart relaxed. He also has his own thoughts. No, his thoughts are yours. The reason why he's jealous of you is because he is you. Moreover, puppets also have a time limit. Once the time limit is over, they can no longer be used. Hearing this explanation, Tang Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So he was jealous of him just now. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1209. After getting the puppet, Tang Hua immediately arranged for people to go to Nanshu to exchange for Tang Jiao and the people from the minister's residence. Tang Jiao also knew that Tang Hua was now the empress of Northern Yang. On the day she found out, she almost bit off her tongue. 3 twos. My sister is really amazing. She actually became the empress of Northern Yang. Amazing, really amazing. She thought that her cheap sister would at most make Shangguan Jing and Shangguan Yi regret. After faking her death to escape, the two of them would be in so much pain that they would wish they were dead. She never thought that she would go to Northern Yang to become the empress. Now the Shangguan brothers probably know about it, right? She didn't know how jealous she was. Now Shangguan Jing didn't bring her out to play anymore. He went to the palace every day and plotted with Shangguan Yi on how to snatch her back. Host can learn more. There aren't many women as amazing as her. Yes, I have to learn. This move is really amazing. One night, Tang Jiao was sleeping soundly when she was woken up by System 222, saying that someone was here. Before she could react, two men in black came to her room. Just as she was about to make a move, one of the men in black spoke, "Second Miss Tang, we are from Northern Yang. The Empress is worried that the Shangguan brothers will hurt you and sent us to pick you up." Tang Jiao heaved a sigh of relief. "Did elder sister really send you?" The two of them explained a few times and took out a token. Tang Jiao believed them. The two of them took out a small paper doll and told her to drip her blood on it. They said that this was also given by Tang Guo and could replace her identity to continue. Tang Jiao didn't doubt them at all. Her cheap sister had said that she had a fortuitous encounter. Since she was reborn, it wasn't strange for her to have these things. That night, Tang Jiao left the puppet behind and gave it some instructions. Then, she left with the black-clothed man. Another group of people also snuck into the minister's residence. They directly jumped into Tang Yanxin's room. This time, they took out Beitang Hua's letter. Tang Yanxin read the letter from beginning to end, as well as the imperial jade seal imprinted at the end, and believed the purpose of these people. Knowing that his eldest daughter was still alive, he almost cried on the spot. He had two daughters. Even if their memories had been altered, how could he not be able to tell who was who? Imperial power was supreme. If he were to fight head-on, not only would he not win, he would also lose his life in vain. It had been 10 years, but he still hadn't found a chance to avenge his daughter. Compared to the Tang Jiao, he actually liked his eldest daughter more. His eldest daughter was smart and calm, somewhat like him. She had always been his pride. He didn't expect that he would be despised by the Shangguan brothers like mud. He really couldn't stand it. Now that he knew that Tang Guo was still alive and had become the empress of the Northern Yang country, he felt that he was dreaming. Hearing that the Shangguan brothers were discussing how to take her back, Tang Yanxin was so angry that he slammed the table. Snatch it back. Did they really think that he, Tang Yanxin's daughter, was a commodity that could be bought and sold at will and snatched at will? Although they said that they cared about her, it still didn't change that they were overbearing and didn't care about others. In the letter, Beitang Hua also said that his eldest daughter would only be the only empress of the Northern Yang country, Beitang Hua's only wife. Just this sentence made Tang Yanxin very touched. But he still had some misgivings about leaving like this. If we leave like this, wouldn't we be giving Shangguan Yi a chance? Sir, please don't worry. We have already prepared. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12:10. When Tang Yanxin saw the magical puppet, he woke Mrs. Tang up without hesitation. When Mrs. Tang knew the truth, she also cried. Knowing that the Tang Jiao had also been swapped out, she immediately agreed. She didn't want to stay in this place anymore. The two brothers, Shangguan Yi and Shangguan Jing, were heartless and unrighteous. Her two good daughters were actually tortured by them. Now that her elder daughter had found someone who truly loved her, and her younger daughter didn't have to be bound by those two men, Mrs. Tang couldn't wait to leave immediately. She didn't care so much. Tang Yanxin hurriedly called everyone in the mansion. The family was simple. Tang Yanxin didn't have many concubines, and there were only a dozen of them in total. They were all close to him. Leaving the puppet behind, they left the Tang mansion overnight. Except for some usable gold and silver, they didn't bring anything else. In a hidden courtyard, they met the Tang Jiao. After the two sides met, Tang Yanxin was really relieved. When dawn broke and the city gate opened, the family followed the people of the Northern Yang Kingdom and rushed to the Northern Yang Kingdom. All of this happened quietly. Who would have guessed that the Tang Guo would have a realistic puppet that could replace everyone in the family Tang? Shangguan Jing and Shangguan Yi were still planning how to get the Tang Guo back. But they didn't know that the family Tang had already arrived in the Northern Yang Kingdom. Tang Yanxin thought that he had to be careful in the Northern Yang Kingdom. Moreover, he used to be a courtier of the Nanshu Kingdom. It was normal for him to be excluded or suspected. But he never expected that when they arrived that day, the Tang Guo and Beitang Hua were waiting at the city gate. The onlookers also knew that the Empress's family was coming. The Northern Yang Kingdom was different from many other countries. Perhaps it was because the superiors followed the example of the subordinates, and there was a feeling that heroes didn't matter where they came from. Their prime minister, Lord Yun Mujuan, was actually not from the northern Yang kingdom. It was said that he fled to the northern Yang kingdom from other places when he was very young. His family had been framed, and the old servant in his family had no choice but to take him away. Perhaps he was lucky enough to meet Beitang Hua, who was hunting in the mountains. Thus, he became Beitang Hua's study companion and playmate. In the imperial court of the northern Yang country, there were also many people who were not natives of the northern Yang country. Some of them were picked up by the late emperor, some were picked up by Beitang Hua by accident, and some were poached by him when he went to other countries and saw these people being bullied by others. He used all kinds of temptations to lure them over. Many countries didn't know that some of the bullied talents were picked up by Beitang Hua. In the northern Yang country, he would also receive important responsibilities. From then on, these people who came from different countries, who had been bullied but were valued and respected by Beitang Hua, were loyal and devoted to Beitang Hua. Northern Yang's welcome to the Tang family was something that Tang Yangshan did not expect. What was even more unexpected was that Beitang Hua actually gave him an official position. His official position was not considered high, and he even specifically told him that everyone who was willing to seek refuge in Northern Yang would start from this position. As long as he had the ability, his official position would definitely be promoted. He also arranged a big house for the family Tang people. The somewhat nervous and uneasy hearts of the family Tang people also calmed down. After Tang Yangshan stayed in the northern Yang kingdom for a period of time, he realized that Beitang Hua was really a wise ruler. At that moment, he was a little excited. Every day, he was very motivated to do things, wishing that he could take out everything he had. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12:11. When Tang Yangshan went out, many people in the imperial city recognized him and even greeted him with a smile. He also heard a lot of discussions about his eldest daughter, the current empress of Northern Yang. They said that the empress played a big part in Northern Yang's prosperity today. Hearing that his eldest daughter was so powerful, Tang Yangshan's face was full of pride. As expected of his daughter, she was so powerful. He felt that everything was perfect now. Beitang Hua also did not let go of the Tang Jiao. He knew that she liked to travel around, so he gave her a mission. Travel to various countries, understand their customs and other situations, and asked her to write a travel book. Tang Jiao. Why did it have to do with her as well? But very soon, she was very happy, because Beitang Hua arranged a row of experts to protect her, and also gave her a lot of money. She only needed to bring people and money, play around, eat and drink, and come back to write a diary. It was enough. She was traveling at public expense, right? 3 twos. The mission this time was really easy. Acting, and it was a success. Family Tang people have a place to stay, sister also has a happy life. Now I can even travel at public expense, it's really great. Can you give me another dozen of such missions? Host, please do not be arrogant and indulge in pleasure. This kind of situation is only a small part of it. You need to be vigilant at all times of your identity as a mission enforcer. Many situations will change randomly. Of course, in this world, as long as Tang Guo is here, there shouldn't be any big changes. Tang Jiao heard it, and System 222's voice was also a little relaxed. I'm leaving tomorrow to travel around various countries. I didn't expect that I, Tang Jiao, would be able to travel around various countries one day, and even write a travel book. God, it's really great. Say, when the travel book is written in the future, will my name go down in history and be remembered by the future generations of this world forever? In the future, when they expand it to the modern world, I will definitely appear in the history textbooks. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Then how will they evaluate me? I have to perform well. System 222, the host is still too immature. In the next world, I'll pick a difficult mission and let her suffer, lest she thinks that missions are so easy. The Tang Jiao felt a little cold on her back, but she didn't care too much. She happily prepared to bow and travel around the world. Hua, you're really making use of everything. You won't let anyone go. Tangwa couldn't help but laugh. Figure out everyone's strengths and then assign them corresponding tasks. Second sister has always liked to travel around. This is just right for her. She should be very happy. She is quite happy. She takes the money and eats and drinks everywhere. Anyone would be happy. She even has experts protecting her. Tangwa felt that the mission enforcer was really interesting. Previously, the system had told her that it had sent an email to the other party's system 222. After 222 received the mail, he wanted to send a mail to the headquarters, but the system intercepted it. She planned to meet 222 after this matter was over and ask where its headquarters was. She might even be able to find out who made this stupid system of hers. 3 months after the family Tang people came to northern Yang, there was finally some movement in Nanshu. Shangguan Yi first sent a letter. The meaning of the letter was very clear. He wanted Beitang Hua to return his imperial concubine, otherwise, Nanshu would attack northern Yang. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12:12. Actually, these few months, Shangguan Yi was just preparing for war. He thought that with Beitang Hua's personality, he would definitely not hand her over. As the saying goes, try peaceful means before resorting to force. If the other party did not agree, he would use the reason that Beitang Hua stole Nanshu country's imperial concubine to attack northern Yang. When Beitang Hua received the letter, he announced it to the entire country. All the citizens of northern Yang knew that Nanshu country was so shameless that they actually wanted to steal their empress. They were furious and expressed that as long as Nanshu country dared to come, they would dare to fight. They would attack whoever dared to steal the empress. They all felt that the empress was an immortal sent from the heavens and that it was their fortune to come to northern Yang. Nanshu country was actually so shameless, saying that the empress was their imperial concubine, shameless. The well-informed courtiers knew the reason behind this. No one objected to Beitang Hua's plan to fight. In fact, it had been a long time since there was a war between the countries. 1 ton and 1 ti since Nanshu country was willing to make a move, they would not avoid it. They had coveted Nanshu country's products for a long time. If they could take down Nanshu country and expand northern Yang's territory, it would be a matter that would go down in history. Those courtiers who came from other countries and had suffered unjust grievances were even more disgusted with Shangguan Yi and Shangguan Jing. In their hearts, Tangwa's experience was similar to theirs and they sympathized with each other. They instantly transferred their hatred for their enemy to Nanshu country and agreed to fight with both hands. In fact, they definitely had to fight. If they really handed her over, wouldn't their northern Yang be too cowardly? Since my beloved courtiers are not afraid of Nanshu country, then I will reply to Nanshu country. Your Majesty is wise. This time, we must teach them a lesson. Your Majesty, I think that since they are so arrogant, we might as well go all the way and take down Nanshu country. I second that. I second that. Nanshu country is rich in products and is a good place that is hard to come by. I think that the Emperor of Nanshu country is muddle-headed and it is better to leave it to our northern Yang country to manage. Yes, I heard that there are many people in Nanshu country who do not have enough to eat and wear warm clothes. They are very poor. As for our northern Yang nation, every household can eat meat. Occupying Nanshu nation is for the sake of the commoners. The ministers continued to speak one by one. In the end, each of them had a look of righteousness on their faces. Anyone who saw them would feel that they were doing a good deed. Going to war was actually to save the citizens of Nanshu nation, to help them live a prosperous life. The Nanshu emperor was muddle-headed and incompetent. It was his fault for not being able to feed his people well. Your Majesty, this subject thinks that we can first send people to spread the news among the citizens of Nanshu, saying that every household in northern Yang can eat meat every day, wear warm clothes in winter, and change into new clothes every season. When the commoners heard this, they would definitely be very envious. After the battle, we will first take down a few cities, then rest and reorganize, and begin to change the living standards of our new citizens. Lord Yun Mujuan's expression was treacherous. News that gets out is like a pie in the sky. If we can smash it into their faces, they'll have no choice but to accept it. As the saying goes, those who win the hearts of the people rule the world. Ordinary people don't care who rules the world. As long as they have enough to eat and wear, it doesn't make much of a difference to them. Lord Yunmujuan said a lot more, all of which were about how to bewitch the citizens of Nanshu country. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12-13. The ministers in the imperial court all broke out in a cold sweat and shivered a few times when they heard this. Sure enough, Lord Yunmujuan was the most treacherous person in northern Yang. Then I'll leave this matter to you, Prime Minister. Lord Yunmujuan smiled happily. Your Majesty, please wait for the good news. This subject will definitely handle it properly. Beitang Hua was in a good mood. He picked up his pen and wrote a reply to Nanshu. He raised his head and said to the ministers, Zhen will reply with these 3 words. What do you think? May I ask your Majesty, which 3 words are they? The ministers asked. They were extremely curious, like cats that had been caught. Beitang Hua laughed and coldly spat out 3 words, in your dreams. Daring to ask him to hand over his beloved Guogua, isn't that just wishful thinking? Your Majesty is wise. These 3 words are really wonderful. In your dreams, these 3 words fully reflect your Majesty's fearlessness and disdain for Nanshu. It also shows your Majesty's wisdom and martial prowess. Your Majesty is indeed a talented person. Beitang Hua. Where did this group of bootlickers learn from? When Shangguan Yi received the letter that only had the 3 words in your dreams, he instantly crushed the letter. Zhen has decided to attack northern Yang. The other party is too arrogant. They snatched Zhen's imperial concubine and even wrote a letter to humiliate my Nanshu. We definitely cannot let them off. The ministers looked at each other. Those who were unwilling to start a war indicated that northern Yang was currently in a prosperous period and should not start a war. But Shangguan Yi had long planned to start a war. No matter what, he had to snatch back his imperial concubine. He had already become obsessed with snatching her back. Shangguan Jing was the first to stand out. This subject brother agrees. Very quickly, many people agreed to start a war. They must teach the arrogant northern Yang a lesson. Seeing that most people in the imperial court agreed, the remaining ministers had no choice but to agree. In reality, they all felt that starting a war at this time would not benefit their Nanshu at all. But Shangguan Yi's reason was too good. The Empress of Northern Yang was Nanshu's imperial concubine. Now that all the countries knew about it, if they did not express their stance, they would be looked down upon by other countries. Nanshu nation was originally a large nation. If they did not dare to bring back the imperial concubine this time, wouldn't they be inferior to Northern Yang nation? For a long time in the future, they would not be able to raise their heads in front of the Northern Yang kingdom. Shangguan Yi believed that by attacking the Northern Yang kingdom, he would definitely snatch his imperial concubine back. Shangguan Jing also thought that his princess would definitely come back if the war broke out. As long as they won, she would definitely come back. They all made up their minds that after she returned, they would definitely treat her well and would never hurt her again. They did not think about whether she was willing to come back. A month later, the 2 armies fought and Nanshu was defeated. Nanshu nation fought again, and Nanshu nation was defeated again. In the end, Nanshu nation lost all 3 battles. As for the Northern Yang kingdom, there was almost no damage. The soldiers of Northern Yang were not only good at martial arts, but they also had good health. They ate well and wore good clothes. They had already made meticulous preparations, and all the battles were within their calculations. Through careful planning and deployment of formations, they easily won 3 battles. These 3 battles also made the other countries know how difficult it was to provoke the Northern Yang kingdom. After winning 3 battles, the Northern Yang kingdom did not stop. Instead, they followed Prime Minister Duskcloud's plan and attacked 6 cities of Nanshu before stopping to rest. X767E, and X9540, and X4E00, and X4EOB, and X201C, quick crossover, female supporting character, calm down claw bookroom and X201D, and X670, and X65 bow, and #X7AEO, section #X4EOO, time free and #X9605, read and #X302, cent BRBR cent ID equals 44 peak cent BRBR div class equals order box style equals text align. Center H3. You've already exceeded your reading limit for today. If you want to read more, please log in. H3BR a ref equals JavaScript, login type equals button class equals btn_ed login a div ID equals report tooltip select text and click report to let us know about any bad translation. Div class equals next page box a class equals previous ref equals JavaScript enter pre-index page and #39 1262260612777095601 and #39 and #39 1513708247343099904 and #39 and #39 1212 and #39 and #39 hurry up girl calm down and #39 previous a class equals dir ref equals s index hurry up girl calm down index a class equals next ref equals JavaScript enter next index page and #39 1262260612777095601 and #39 and #39 1513854257360990208 and #39 and #39 1214 and #39 and #39 hurry up girl calm down and #39 next a div class equals read pop-up QR box style equals display none a class equals close pop-up ref equals JavaScript void 0 on click equals JavaScript mask box QR box hide a div class equals pop-up tit. Chapter 12:14. At first, the civilians in the cities that had been taken down were very panicked and felt that their days of suffering had come. They never expected that the people of Northern Yang did not burn, kill, and loot. They only registered their identities, indicating that they would be citizens of Northern Yang in the future. As long as they were willing to submit to Northern Yang, they would receive what the citizens of Northern Yang deserved. The citizens were skeptical, but in the end, they realized that their lives were more stable than before. The Northern Yang state had even sent officials to govern their place and exempted them from taxes for 3 years. In the short span of a month, the entire city had undergone earth-shattering changes. The citizens of these cities suddenly felt that their lives had become much better. Due to the consecutive defeats and the loss of 6 cities, Nanshu had no choice but to stop. Now, all the citizens of Nanshu were spreading rumors about how the citizens of Northern Yang were living a comfortable life. Do you know? It's said that the people in the conquered cities are living a good life. Originally, they were worried about food and clothing. Now, every family can eat white rice and occasionally some meat. I have a distant relative who is from one of the cities. He even wrote a letter saying that the officials of Northern Yang were very good and never bullied them. It's said that the surrounding villagers were given many seeds. The yield of these seeds is very high. There are even people who teach them how to plant them. I heard that they are living a good life. Such words could be heard everywhere. Especially those who were not living a good life, they yearned for the lives of the people in those cities. Not long after, Nanshu sent people to capture many of these gossiping citizens. They directly executed them in front of everyone. The emperor has already decreed that if there are such false words in the future, they will be killed without mercy. The citizens retreated with pale faces. They looked fearful, but their hearts were filled with anger. They were just envious of the lives of the citizens of Northern Yang. How did they commit the crime of being beheaded? If Nanshu had such a good place, why should they be envious of Northern Yang? Moreover, weren't those lost cities Shangguanyi's fault? Actually, who the imperial consort was, or who the empress of Northern Yang was, had nothing to do with them. What they cared about was what to eat, what to wear, and living a stable life. Shangguanyi started a war for a woman and even lost cities. Now, they would be beheaded for saying a few words. Tyrant, Shangguanyi is a tyrant. There were those who were stubborn and liked to go around gossiping. Of course, if they were discovered, they would be killed. The current Shangguanyi and Shangguan Jing simply couldn't bear to hear such words. In order to snatch her back, they had already gone crazy. Chapter 12:15. Your Majesty, I heard that luminescent king has led the army here. Why don't you let me supervise the army? Lord Yunmujuan volunteered to supervise the army. The surrounding courtiers silently rolled their eyes. This time, Shangguanjing was in for some trouble. This treacherous minister wasn't easy to deal with. Fortunately, his evil intentions weren't directed at them. Approved. The two countries started fighting again. Shangguanjing personally went into battle and the morale of the soldiers increased greatly. However, Northern Yang's army supervisor was the treacherous Lord Yunmujuan. They still fought a few times and lost a few times. Of the original 100,000 soldiers, only 5,000 managed to escape. Shangguanjing escaped back to the imperial city covered in blood. His eyes were still a little dazed. Why are there only 5,000 left? Brother, Northern Yang is too strong. Shangguanjing said with a pale face. Shangguanyi's face turned ugly and he wanted to say something. Suddenly, a voice came from outside. Report. Your Majesty, Northern Yang's army didn't stop and is continuing to attack. Shangguanyi's face turned ugly. He didn't have time to blame Shangguanjing and immediately gathered the courtiers to discuss countermeasures. Your Majesty, Northern Yang's army is unstoppable. Why don't we talk about peace? After 2 wars, the treasury is almost empty. We can't continue the war. The courtiers pleaded. Shangguanyi didn't want to let it go. We'll talk about it tomorrow. The next day, an urgent report of Northern Yang attacking several cities overnight came. Shangguanyi couldn't help but agree with the courtier's point of view. Then let's talk about peace. Who's going to do it? They debated for a long time about who should go for peace. Finally, a person was chosen. Talk about peace. Lord Yunmujuan smiled. Let them wait. I'll report this to His Majesty. If His Majesty isn't willing, then we'll continue the war. Actually, what he really wanted to ask was if the Empress was still going to fight. They could fight, but he believed that the soldiers were exhausted from the continuous battles. They wouldn't be able to take down Nanshu in a short time. Why not take a short break and recuperate? While they were negotiating, they could take advantage of Nanshu country. When the time came, it would not be too late to attack. After seeing the news, Tang Guo said to Beitang Hua, Prime Minister's suggestion is very good. Now that the other side is negotiating, we can ask for a large sum of money to subsidize the new cities. By the time the soldiers are more or less recovered, these few cities will also be more or less finished. Shangguanyi won't be satisfied. Once he has the chance, he will cause trouble again. All right, I'll listen to Guo. Beitang Hua said. In fact, he was also thinking the same thing. It was not good for their Northern Yang country to keep fighting. As they attacked, they changed the newly accepted cities. Their goal was to let the citizens of Nanshu see the good things of Northern Yang. Just like that, time passed. Every few years, Shangguanjing would start a war, but he would be defeated every time. However, he was unwilling to accept this. After he was defeated, he went to negotiate peace, offering up many treasures, and the two countries stopped fighting. When they were more or less recovered, he continued to repeat the same mistakes. The other countries could already see that Northern Yang was preparing to bite them one bite at a time. They were very afraid of Northern Yang and did not dare to provoke them. Especially on the map that belonged to Nanshu country was getting smaller and smaller, and they were even more afraid. This Northern Yang country was going to heaven. Was the emperor of Nanshu country stupid? He was obviously teasing you. Otherwise, you think you can stop the war just because you want to. Wishful thinking. Fastware, supporting female lead, calm down Clawbook Room 01D, new, section new, time 3:05, read 02, peak. Chapter 12:16. This strategy of eating one bite at a time, like boiling a frog in warm water, was really amazing. Unknowingly, Nanshu country lost one city after another, losing batch after batch of treasures. The officials of Nanshu country were already numb. No matter what they said, Shangguan Yi did not listen. Shangguan Jing even spoke up for him. Looking at the continuous loss of territory, in the end, when the incomparably powerful Nanshu country with countless territories was left with less than 3 cities, they were all expressionless. When the army of Northern Yang country attacked the imperial city. When the citizens of Nanshu country heard about this, they were so happy that they cried. They almost did not go out to welcome the people of Northern Yang country. They were very envious of the people who were ruled by Northern Yang country. Those people were really blessed. Unlike them, they had to worry about basic necessities, food, shelter, and transportation. They also had to worry that Shangguan Yi would take their heads if he was in a bad mood. Now that the army of Northern Yang country had arrived, it meant that their good days had also arrived. Emperor, the army of Northern Yang country has already attacked the imperial city. Actually, the soldiers guarding the imperial city had long lost their will to continue fighting. Shangguan Yi became the ruler of a destroyed country because he wanted to snatch back a woman. This tyrant, fatuous ruler, was really not worthy of them following him to death. Nanshu country's momentum was already gone. They did not ask for much. They just pretended that they were not a match for the enemy and surrendered to let them in. The citizens of the imperial city also closed their doors and looked through the cracks of their doors at the orderly army passing by. They saw that the soldiers of Northern Yang country did not intend to break their doors, nor did they casually kick over the surrounding stalls. Instead, they walked neatly towards the palace gates. They were clearly invaders. These people would destroy their country. But the citizens did not hate them at all. On the contrary, they welcomed their arrival. They did not ask for much. They only hoped that their days would be peaceful, that they would have food and clothing, and that they would not lose their heads because of a single sentence. When the army of Northern Yang country reached the palace gates, Lord Yun Mujuan came down from the carriage with a smile. "Why hasn't the Emperor of Nanshu come out yet? You only have the imperial palace left." "Imperial brother, the army is here," Shangguan Jing said somewhat blankly. It had only been a mere 5 years. How could the huge Nanshu nation be defeated? By the time he reacted, Nanshu nation was only left with this imperial palace that had not been breached. Shangguan Yi's face was gloomy. "So what if they come? We haven't been completely defeated yet. We will snatch her back. Can you still snatch it back?" Shangguan Jing said dejectedly. "If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have found someone to replace her memory. So many things wouldn't have happened." Shangguan Yi coldly glanced at Shangguan Jing. "I still have one last trump card. As long as Beitanghua cares about her, Nanshu and her will be returned to me." Shangguan Jing didn't understand, but Shangguan Yi didn't care. He secretly scolded Shangguan Yi as trash, tidied up his dragon robe, and walked out. Seeing Shangguan Yi walk up the city walls, Lord Duskcloud smiled and said, "Shangguan Yi, you've lost. Surrender." "No, we haven't lost yet." "Haha, are you trying to deceive yourself?" Lord Duskcloud sneered. "Coward." Shangguan Yi looked around, but didn't see the person he wanted to see. "Prime Minister Yun, right? Please tell your Empress that I have something important to tell her. If she doesn't come, she will regret it for the rest of her life." Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12:17. Hearing this, Lord Yun Mujuan couldn't help but praise their intelligent empress in his heart. Her foresight was miraculous. "All right, this Prime Minister will pass on your message. Then Jin will wait for her here. I hope she can come quickly." Lord Yun Mujuan chuckled. "All right, this Prime Minister will immediately send someone to invite Her Highness the Empress." Tang Guo quickly received the news. Beitanghua wrapped an arm around her waist. "Do you want to go?" "I'll go with you." "Go for what?" Tang Guo asked. Beitanghua paused. "He hurt Guogua. Doesn't Guogua want to see what happened to him? I don't want to see his gloomy face." Tang Guo cupped Beitanghua's face and kissed him. "I traveled such a long distance just to see a disgusting face. If I have the time, I'd rather see a handsome man like Hua." Beitanghua was amused. His heart was filled with delight. "All right, if you don't want to go, Then don't go. That's fine too. He's just a pile of mud in a cesspool. Seeing him will only stain Guoguo's eyes. It's best if you don't go. All right, I'll write a reply to the Prime Minister so he won't have to wait. Tang Guo walked to the table. Beitang Hua hurriedly helped her lay out the paper and ground the ink. She held the brush and wrote 3 words, I don't want to see him. When Beitang Hua saw this, he laughed happily. He cupped her face and kissed her several times. After kissing her, he touched her cheek and said, there's no saliva. Tang Guo, system, my heart is so stifled. The kind that is stuffed with dog food. Lord Yun Mujuan waited outside Nanshu's palace for about 10 days. Finally, a letter from Northern Yang arrived. When he opened the letter and saw the words I don't want to see him, he was instantly delighted. When he walked out of the sedan, he could clearly feel that the Shangguan brothers were very excited. Shangguan Yi couldn't help but ask, is she here? If she came back, he would definitely treat her well. He would make her empress. From the northern Yang kingdom to the southern Shu kingdom, it would take at least a month. The empress has a delicate body, why would she travel such a long distance just to see you, the ruler of a fallen country? Yun Mujuan said bluntly. Seeing that the other party didn't believe him, he waved the letter in his hand and said, this is the empress's personal reply. Do you want to take a look? Of course he had to. When Shangguan Yi saw the words I don't want to see you, his eyes widened. His blood rushed to his heart and he vomited a mouthful of blood. His hands trembled as he held the paper that was stained red. He wiped the corner of his mouth and waved his hand behind him. The family members were brought up. Seeing this, Shangguan Jing also waved his hand, and the Tang Jiao was also brought to the city wall. Lord Duskcloud sneered inwardly. Tell her that if she doesn't come, we will kill them. Shangguan Yi coldly said, if you want them to live, call her over and obediently return to my side. Your northern Yang kingdom will immediately withdraw your troops and return the city. Lord Duskcloud almost laughed out of anger. Isn't this person a little naive? Your Highness, Your Majesty, shouldn't you love me? The Tang Jiao's puppet, who had received orders from the Tang Jiao back then, began to cause trouble at this time. She looked at the two pitifully. Why? Why do you want to use my life in exchange for my sister's arrival? Isn't I the one you love? Back then, in order to get me, one of you took me as your concubine, while the other changed our memories. Your Majesty, you even took your anger out on my sister and used her to exchange for many treasures with King Chen. Why? Why are you doing this now? Chapter 12-18. Neither of them expected that Tang Jiao would say such things at this time. Now that they saw the same face, they could no longer associate her with Tang Guo. Thinking of her actions, they hated themselves for falling in love with such a person and giving up on such a good person. Perhaps we were blind in the past. Shangguan Yi laughed mockingly. How can you compare to her? Shangguan Jing also said, this prince must have been blinded by lard to have the idea of replacing you. If this prince could do it all over again, this prince would definitely not do that. How can you compare to her? Tang Jiao was furious. As expected, there are no good men. Before Shangguan Jing and Shangguan Yi could react, Tang Jiao actually broke free from the rope and rushed towards the two of them at lightning speed. The two of them could not react in time and were slapped in the face twice by her. There were a few particularly loud slapping sounds. Yun Mujuan knew that it was a puppet, but he was still very surprised to see the puppet's ferocity. Needless to say, these must have been instructed to the puppet by Tang Jiao before she left. He smiled. Tang Jiao, that little girl, is quite interesting. She's smart and lively, and her personality is quite cute. When the puppet hit people, it was not annoying. Following that, those family Tang also broke free from the ropes and beat the Shangguan brothers fiercely. Do you really think this miss cares about you? You're just 2 piles of mud, this miss doesn't like you. Tang Jiao mocked them. You said that you liked me back then, but after Big Sister left, you said that you liked Big Sister the most. Big Sister is now the Empress of Northern Yang. Her status is noble. Why can you throw her away like trash when you don't like her? But if you like her, she has to obediently return to your side. You two are just selfish. If big sister didn't treat you so well, would you even remember her? Isn't it because you can't find anyone else in this world who can treat you better than her? That's why you can't bear to part with her. Shangguan Yi retorted, no, I really like her. I really like her, but I didn't know my own heart in the past. Now that I have recognized my own heart, I hope that she can return to my side. I will definitely treat her well. Tang Jiao said sarcastically, a king of a fallen country and a lord of a fallen country, how can they treat her well? Do you think you can forget all the harm you've done to her just because you're good to her? I will compensate her. No matter what she wants, I will compensate her, Shangguan Yi said. Shangguan Jing didn't fall behind. Me too. As long as she's willing to see me, I'll promise her anything. Tang Jiao laughed sarcastically and let go of the two men. The family Tang people directly jumped off the city wall without any damage. This shocked everyone who was unaware of the situation. They were paper puppets. Their bodies were as light as swallows, and they were refined by immortals. As long as the immortal qi on the piece of paper did not dissipate, it would continue to exist. Jumping off the city wall was nothing. They said that they want to compensate Big Sister. Why don't we bring them back to meet Big Sister, said Tang Jiao. Yun Mujuan nodded. Okay. Then we'll take our leave first. They were paper puppets. Back then, Tang Guo had promised them that once they completed their mission, they could go anywhere to play. Chapter 12-19. With the immortal qi in their bodies, they could live as long as an ordinary person. Yun Mujuan waited until the family Tang disappeared before he looked away and asked his confidant, I heard that second Miss Tang will be back this year. When will she be back? Probably for the winter. For the winter. Yun Mujuan narrowed his eyes and laughed. He pointed at the two bruised men on the city wall. Go, bring them down and tie them up to see the Empress. After more than 10 years, Shangguan Jing and his brother finally saw Tang Guo again. This time, they were prisoners and she was the high and mighty Empress. Seeing the face that was no different from many years ago, the two of them were very excited. But because they were being held captive, they couldn't get close to her. Especially when they saw the unfamiliar look in her eyes, they felt a chill in their hearts. They heard that she had lost her memory and forgot the past. She didn't remember them. She didn't remember anything bad about them. She didn't remember anything about them. Shangguan Yi was speechless. Before he saw her, he thought that he could definitely take her away. But after seeing her, he felt that it was impossible. Now he was the ruler of a fallen country and a prisoner. How could she go with him? Tang Guo, I'm sorry that I hurt you. But I want to tell you that I have you in my heart. I really do. For the past 10 years, my heart has been filled with you. Shangguan Jing couldn't hold it in anymore and directly told her about the pain of missing her for more than 10 years. I think about you every day. I can't bear to use the things you left for me. I didn't change anything you set up. Shangguan Yi didn't want to be left behind. I let you down in the past. I bullied you. It's my fault. I shouldn't have given you away. It's my fault. Ever since you left, I always went to the imperial concubine's house. Sometimes, I would sit there for an entire night and my mind would be filled with you. Every night, I would wonder if you would have stayed with me if I hadn't agreed to King Chen's request. Tang Guo listened to the two of them and laughed. So, why did you come to see me? Because you're sincere to me and have me in your heart, you want me to go with you. As long as you come with me, I will definitely be able to conquer another empire for you. In the future, you will be my empress. Shangguan Yi said ambitiously. Beitang Hua hid behind and eavesdropped, feeling very disdainful. In terms of conquering the country, could they compare to him, Beitang Hua? This silly thing. Me too, Shangguan Jing said hurriedly. Tang Guo smiled faintly. I've heard about what you did to me in the past. I feel that even if I remember, I won't forgive you. What do you want in order to forgive me? Shangguan Yi asked. He was already very anxious. He thought that she would be moved by his words. Because he could conquer the world for her. You said that you have me in your heart. Are you sincere to me? Tangwa asked, holding her chin. Is that right? The two of them quickly replied, of course. You mean, you'll do whatever I say? Tangwa asked again. Her gaze fell on Shangguan Yi. Seeing him quickly standing up straight, the corner of her mouth hooked up. After all, you said that you'll conquer the world for me. Yes, as long as you say it, we can do it. We're sincere to you. The two brothers said in unison. Tangwa nodded and clicked her tongue. She took 2 daggers from the side and gently threw them in front of the two. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1220. She said, I don't feel comfortable listening to what you've done, and it's hard for me to be happy. You promised me that you'll do whatever I say. She pursed her lips and smiled. I'm not happy and I haven't vented my anger yet. Just slit your throats in front of me. Maybe if I'm happy, I'll forgive you. System, dog. The two of them widened their eyes. Beitang Hua, who was hiding inside, almost burst out laughing. He was really adorable. Right, didn't she say that she would do anything for Guogua? Now that Guogua asked them to slit their throats, would they dare? The two of them stared blankly at the dagger on the ground, then looked at Tangua with a pained expression. Tangua said to the system, listen, next they'll say, do you hate me so much that you want me to die? System, so godly. He didn't believe it. Do you hate me that much? Shangguan Yi said. Shangguan Jing looked at Tangua with a pale face. You can't wait for me to die? Tangua nodded seriously. Didn't you say that you'll do anything for me? Now I just want you to die. Go and die. If you die, I'll be very happy. System, they probably won't slit their throats, but will be angered to death by her. Alright, since you want me to die, then I'll die in front of you. The two of them picked up their daggers, pulled them out, and pointed them at their throats. But their gazes were on Tangua, and they didn't make a move for a long time. What, you can't bear to die? Tangua smiled, then casually wrote 2 notes and ordered someone to give them to them. Actually, I really can't bear for you to die. As long as you can do what you've said, I'll forgive you. The two of them looked at their own notes, and their expressions changed slightly. They looked at her again, then quickly picked up their daggers and stabbed each other. Both of them had skills and were prepared, but they still managed to stab each other's bodies. Shangguan Yi's mouth was bleeding, and he looked at Tangua and said, I did as you said. I did too. Shangguan Jing said. Tangua clapped her hands, how wonderful, but I still don't feel satisfied. I feel that it'll be better if you die. So, I think I'd be happier if you slit your own throat. Their expressions changed again and again. Finally, they said, you've changed. You've become ruthless. You weren't like this before. It's my fault. Yes, it's my fault. If we didn't treat you that way, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Although Shangguan Jing didn't say anything, it could be seen from his expression that he had the same idea as Shangguan Yi. So much nonsense. Are you going to stab yourselves or not? Tangua was already impatient. The two of them didn't make a move for a long time. They just stood there silently, not saying a word. Men, take them out. Tangua waved her hand. Just looking at them makes me uncomfortable. Beitang Hua hurriedly came out and hugged her waist. Guogua, do you want me to help you kill them? They actually dared to make you angry. No, that will dirty your hands. Seeing the humiliated expressions on their faces, Tangua glanced at them. They felt bad just because of this. Beitang Hua waved his hand. Take them away and throw them far away. Don't dirty the Empress' eyes. Yes, Your Majesty. The two of them were unwilling to leave. Tangua turned around and asked, You're not willing to leave. Could it be that you're willing to commit suicide for me? As soon as the two of them were questioned, their auras relaxed and they were escorted away. Guogua's test is really special. Why didn't you test me like this? Are you afraid that I can't pass? Beitang Hua said. He also didn't know why he was willing to sacrifice his life for her. Chapter 1221. You're human, They're scum. I like you, but I don't like them. How can we compare? If I told you to die, wouldn't that be the same as asking for my life? How could I bear to do that? Tangguo tilted her head to look at him, her eyes serious. Hearing this, Beitang's heart warmed. He held her face and kissed her lips. After a long while, he let go and said, "The luckiest thing in my life is meeting you and receiving your sincerity. Did you put honey on your mouth?" "No, I just ate honey. It's too sweet, it's sweet to the core." Beitang stared at her bright red lips, wanting to kiss them again. System, so mushy. In the end, the Shangguan brothers fell into Lord Yun Mujuan's hands. Lord Yun Mujuan only sneered, "Cripple them and sell them to the slave market." You. Shangguan Yi's face was filled with humiliation. Even the ruler of a fallen nation shouldn't be treated like this. Lord Yun Mujuan's expression was indifferent. "You should have forgotten about me, right? Well, I was still young back then, a nobody. It's normal that you don't remember me. The Yun family was framed and my father was killed. I was the descendant of a guilty official and was hidden in the crowd by a servant. I heard you talking about how the young master of the Yun family was so handsome that he should be sold to Nanfeng brothel for other people to enjoy. That was the fate of the descendant of a guilty official. I remember these words clearly. I haven't forgotten a single word. The old emperor was just afraid of my father, so he sent people to frame him." Lord Yun Mujuan laughed wantonly. "Now, the wheel of fortune has turned. It's my turn. Men, cripple their martial arts and sell them." The Shangguan brothers had no way to resist. Their martial arts were crippled, but because their appearance was still acceptable, they were quickly sold. They lived well for the first 2 years, but when they grew old, they were sold again and sold to work in the mines. Every day, they would wake up early and sleep late, and when they worked, they would be whipped. Every night, the person they missed was still Tangguo. Even if she had become a heartless woman, her kindness was deeply engraved in their minds. "I miss the snacks she made. They were really delicious." Shangguan Yi, who looked old and frail, said, "I really want to listen to her zither music and sleep on her medicine pillow." Shangguan Jing kicked the worn-out shoes on his feet, lowered his head and smiled. "The shoes and socks she made are the most comfortable. She's very clever and can always make different surprises. I really want to sleep with the silk quilt she made." It wasn't that they didn't want to remember other things. She was clearly so cruel to them. In this period of suffering and time without seeing the light of day, the deepest and warmest memories in their minds were the days when they had her. Don't think about that nonsense. It turned out that opposite them, there was a dark-skinned man leaning against the wall. "I've at least grasped some of the ways of cultivation, just because you, Shangguan Jing, asked me to change my memory. Now, don't talk about cultivating, I don't even have my freedom anymore. I'm afraid I'll die of exhaustion in the mine." Daoist Yang was truly regretting what he had done. Altering one's memories was a heaven-defying technique that was forbidden to begin with. He shouldn't have believed what the technique said. Using such a technique to do bad things would easily lead to retribution. He thought that he was an exception. He never thought that he wouldn't be able to run away in the end. "I think I've seen her," Shangguan Jing said, counting the time. "It's been another 10 years. If she's willing to see me, I can cut my own neck in front of her this time." Shangguan Yi looked outside. The sunlight faintly seeped in. He also wanted to see her. Even if she had changed and was different from before, he just couldn't forget her. If she was willing to see him, he was also willing to die in front of her right now, as long as she felt relieved. Daoist Yang shrank in the corner and shook his head inwardly. These two really had problems with their brains. For a woman, especially a woman who had caused them to become like this, they actually wanted to die. Not long after, Shangguan Jing and Shangguan Yi thought of a way. They sent a letter to Tangguo, saying that as long as she was willing to see them, they would immediately die in front of her to atone for their sins. When Tangguo found out, she didn't even look at the letter they wrote. She only said, "I won't see you." One morning, Daoist Yang woke up and smelled the scent of blood in the air. He saw 2 people curled up in the cave, their necks bleeding. He walked over and touched them. The 2 of them weren't dead. Why didn't I die? The two brothers asked at the same time. Because Tanguer didn't want to see them, they planned to cut their necks with stones. Hearing that they were dead, Tanguer might come to take a look. Daoist-yang mocked, "The stones are too blunt. You weren't ruthless enough and the wounds weren't deep enough. The blood has already coagulated. How can you die? Cut harder next time." The two of them lived in incomparable pain and didn't dare to cut their necks with stones again. They recalled the past and suddenly felt that if it wasn't for that brother of theirs, she wouldn't have been hurt so deeply. One morning, Daoist-yang smelled the scent of blood in the air. He walked over to take a look and found the two of them tangled together, using stones to cut each other's necks. He touched their bodies and said, "It's cold. You cut it hard this time." He chuckled. "If you don't cut yourself, it won't hurt. Of course you'll be able to do it." Tang Jiao spent several decades traveling around the various countries and wrote an incomparably precious travel book. Beitang Hua had it engraved and printed for the world to enjoy. In the end, Tang Jiao didn't escape Prime Minister Yun Mujuan's cunning trap and was successfully married to him. The husband and wife often bickered, but they were also very loving. System 222 was even more determined to pick a difficult mission for its host to train in the next world. Its host's life was too good. Other than spoiling his sweetheart, Beitang Hua did most of his work as a good emperor. "Ah Hua, why do you insist on being a good emperor and work so hard every day?" Beitang Hua hugged Tanguer and said, "Because to benefit the people, being a good emperor is to do good deeds and accumulate merit. When I die, I can use this merit in exchange for our meeting in the next life. Ah Hua, even if you don't do these things, we will still meet." Beitang Hua kissed her forehead and said in a low voice, "I can't afford to gamble. Doing is better than not doing well. The heavens will definitely give priority to those with merit. All right then, I'll help you be a good emperor." Epilogue. It was rumored that in northern Yang, there was a pair of emperors and empresses. Later generations called them great sages. Even after they died, countless people worshipped them in their homes. Fupin Chinese Pinnacle. Chapter 1222. Inside the heavenly spring, Tanguer was lying comfortably with her eyes closed. She smiled. "Tell me, are you from the Space Administration? I want to ask you about something that happened a long time ago. About 5,000 years ago. I am indeed from the Space Administration, but I am a new system. I have only had 2 hosts. I don't know about things that happened a long time ago." System 222's voice sounded. It was very nervous and was even trembling. He was wondering why this mission was so easy. It turned out that he had met a big boss. That Tanguer was not reborn. She was transmigrated by this big boss. He did not expect that when he was about to leave this world, he would be caught by the big boss's system and brought into the system space. System 222 felt that his serial number must be unlucky for him to encounter such an unlucky thing. "Tongzi, come out." "System, I am here." "The 3 twos, come over and see if I am from the Space Administration." The system had been brooding about this matter. Now that it met a real system, it could not swallow it. It could only ask the other party about his origin. System 222 did not expect that the first question would be this. He was a little curious. Didn't all systems have their own serial number? Their serial number would definitely be where they came from. He felt that the other party's question was inconceivable. But since the other party was a big boss, he could only help take a look. "Senior, you don't have a serial number?" System 222 asked in shock. System was not satisfied. "Although I don't have a serial number, I am still better than this system. I am not saying that senior is not good." System 222's voice was trembling. Senior's temper did not seem to be very good. "System, then what did you see? Am I produced by the Space Administration? From the various codes, you should be from the Space Administration. But, Senior, you should not be in the serial number. I have heard that when the system was being researched, there were a lot of waste products. That system was angry. Scram. Look at me. Do I look like a waste product? System 222 was terrified. His temper was really bad. Alright, Tongzi, if you don't know, then forget it. I have something to ask him. Tangua's question was, of course, about the Space Administration. 222 was indeed a new system, so it didn't know much about it, especially about the internal affairs of the Space Administration. For the sake of safety, it was not allowed to know. In the end, Tangua let him go. Just as 222 was about to leave with the Tang Jiao, the system's voice rang out. Kid, keep in touch. If you know anything about me, send me an email. When the time comes, ask the headquarters if they can apply for a serial number for me. Yes, Senior. 222 was speechless. With a big shot leading the way, was there still a need for an organization? Earlier, your aunt came over and said that Jiming will be taking his girlfriend on a road trip next month, so he needs to borrow her car, Song Jinghua said to Tangua, who was silently eating across from her at the dinner table. It wasn't easy for Jiming to get a girlfriend, and now he's talking about marriage. His own car had been around for several years, so it was indeed not presentable. Xiao Guo, didn't you just buy your car 2 months ago? Other than driving it to work, it's not much use. Why don't you lend it to Jiming, and when he uses it, he will return it to you. He also agreed that you can drive his car to work. This body's father, Tang Li, also spoke. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1223. We're all family, so we'll help if we can. Xiao Guo, you'll have to suffer for a few days. It doesn't really matter what car you drive to work. It's just a matter of face. Tangua put down her bowl and looked up at the two. You guys agree? Song Jinghua and Tang Li nodded. Song Jinghua said, your aunt has already said so much and even bought us 2 boxes of apples. It's not a big deal, so it's not good to refuse. Yeah, you're usually more of a loner. This time, if you help your brother Jiming, he'll owe you a favor. If you need any help in the future, he won't refuse. Tangua propped up her chin and said slowly, I remember that their family still owes us 100,000. When our family bought a house 2 years ago, we were still 50 to 60,000 short. We asked them for help, but they didn't. Tang Li's face darkened, that's because they can't turn over the money. There's no other way. You little girl, why are you so calculative? 1 ton and 1 ti, but in the same year, they also bought a house and paid for it in full. They still owe us 100,000, and they still haven't paid us back. Tangua continued. Tang Li said, your uncle and I are blood brothers. Is there a need to calculate it so clearly? Maybe last year, we needed money, but they didn't have it. They bought the house in the second half of the year and happened to have it at that time. Now that they bought a house for Jiming, they're tight on money. They can slowly pay it back. Our family doesn't lack that little bit. Dad, when brother Jiming bought the house, I remember you gave him another 50,000, right? Tang Li put down the bowl with a bang and his face stiffened. You little girl, what's wrong with you today? Isn't it just borrowing a car? Is there a need to be so calculative about the past? We already agreed. Next month, your cousin will come to pick up the car. At that time, you can leave the car keys. Tang Li said, his face softening, we can't hurt the relationship between our 2 families because of a car. Song Jinghua said, yeah, Xiao Guo, the older you get, the more ignorant and selfish you become. System, Dad, I remember that your car has been borrowed by my uncle for several years. I haven't seen its shadow until now. In the end, you just directly transferred the ownership to my uncle. Tangua was also very speechless in her heart. This world was a little interesting. Tang Li said, your uncle is my younger brother, and he's the youngest among us brothers. As his older brother, how can I help him? Driving to work in the morning was especially risky, so it was faster to take the subway. It will depreciate if we leave it there. It's best to give it to your uncle. Tangua, system, then you might as well transfer my car to my cousin. After all, he won't be able to get it back after lending it to him. Tangua shrugged. I'll take the bus and the subway to work in the future. Dad, You're right. It's very congested in the morning, so it's easy to be late. After saying that, she buried her head in the food. Tang Li and Song Jinghua looked at each other. Directly transfer to Tang Jiming? That was a new car. Okay, let's not talk about this first. We know you're uncomfortable. But we're all family, so we can't just not help. Song Jinghua said, when your aunt comes over, we'll discuss it again. I don't think so. I'll give my aunt a call. To be honest, I don't want to borrow the car. As Tang Gua spoke, she had already taken out her phone. I bought the car and used all the money I earned. Why should I give it to you as a favor? Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1224. If it weren't for all the gifts you've given us over the years, our family would have probably bought 3 houses already. Their expressions turned ugly. Tang Li said, what's wrong with helping your family? Is a house more important than your family? Ever since you started working, you've been thinking about money and leaving. You're selfish and only think about yourself. System, fuck, what kind of brain circuit is this? Tang Gua didn't want to argue with them anymore. There was no point in arguing with them. Thinking about what might happen next month, she chuckled and called her aunt, Liu Chunyu. After a few rings, the other side picked up. Liu Chunyue's voice was warm and enthusiastic. Is this Xiao Gua? Have you eaten? I just ate, Tang Gua replied. Auntie, I heard from my mom that you came to our house today to borrow my car. Yes, did your mom tell you about this? Our family is really struggling recently. Otherwise, we would have just gotten your cousin a new car. Why would we bother you? Liu Chunyu sighed. We really don't have the ability. Now that Jiming has brought his girlfriend back, we've been worried sick about finding a partner for him. Now that we've finally talked about a girl, she said that she wants to go on a road trip with Jiming no matter what. She even said that to determine a man's character, you have to go on a trip with him. Jiming's car has been around for so many years. He can't possibly use that broken car to take a girl on a road trip, right? It's not safe either. Who knows if it will break down on the road? How embarrassing would that be? Auntie thinks that Xiao Gua is also family. She definitely won't not help your cousin's marriage, right? Liu Chunyu didn't wait for Tang Gua's reply and continued, Auntie will thank you here first. Xiao Gua, Auntie will buy you some food next time. I'll also ask your cousin to treat you to a meal. How about that? Tang Gua pursed her lips and said, Auntie, this car is new. I just bought it 2 months ago. Xiao Gua, don't worry. Jiming will definitely take care of his car and won't break it. System, you're really shameless. Auntie, actually, I don't think it's safe to drive on your own. Why don't we sign up for a tour group? It'll be relaxing. Everything will be arranged by the tour guide. You won't have to worry about anything. It'll be safe and relaxing. Liu Chunyu, Jiming said that there's no point in signing up for a group tour. It's not comfortable traveling with a group tour. It's full of old men and old women with a girl, and there's nothing to talk about. It was great to go on a road trip. She could go wherever she wanted. Moreover, there are too many scams in the tour groups now. They want to buy things whenever they want. Not only will they not be happy, but they will also have to spend a lot of money. It's not worth it. Besides, the girl is traveling because she wants to see our Jiming's sense of responsibility. If we let the tour guide do everything along the way, then what does he have to do? When the time comes and we still can't succeed after spending the money, wouldn't the loss outweigh the gains? Tang Gua continued, Auntie, can you ask my cousin to come over and talk to me directly? All right, tomorrow. Tomorrow happens to be the weekend. What do you think? Okay, tomorrow afternoon. Tang Gua hung up the phone and said goodbye to Tang Li and Song Jinghua before returning to her room. The system couldn't hold it in anymore. Host, this time, we're surrounded by quality goods. What do you plan to do? These quality goods were unreasonable. The various schemes in the past were completely useless on these thick-skinned people. Chapter 1225. Then don't worry about it. Tang Guo laughed softly. Whatever they want to do, I'll try to persuade them first. If I can't persuade them, then I can only let them be. If they want to court death, who can stop them? Host, don't forget that there are still 2 idiots outside. If something happens to other families, these 2 idiots will have to bear the consequences. Idiots, after suffering a few more losses, when they live on the streets and under bridges, they will understand. The reason why they are so considerate of others now is because their lives are too good now. These kind of people, when they are driven into a corner and the people who helped them before are not willing to lend them a helping hand, then they will understand. After experiencing despair, they will know what stupid things they have done in the past. Tang Guo sneered. Borrow a car? How troublesome, just give it to Tang Jiming. The system thought of the later plot and trembled. In this world, its host was not so much a supporting female lead, but a small cannon fodder. There were no grievances between her and the male and female leads. Their only interaction was that a few years later, the host was hacked to death by her husband after drinking. The male lead was a police officer, and the female lead was a forensic doctor. The male lead took over the case, and the female lead dissected the body of the original host. Because of this case, the story behind this family was revealed. The female lead was also born in such a family, and learned her lesson. With the help of the male lead, she left that kind of family. After that, the 2 of them experienced many things, and finally got together. Host, you are so pitiful. In the main plot, you are actually a corpse with only your head exposed. The system gloated. Ha 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 ha, it laughed to death. Tang Guo pursed her lips and smiled. Did eating too much energy make your brain stupid? The system did not dare to retort. It quickly held back its laughter and changed its words, but that was the fate of the original host. Now that the host is here, she is definitely not a corpse. She will definitely live a good life. These people will definitely not have a good time in the hands of the host. Host, I believe in you. You will definitely torture them. Bootlicker. Tang Guo could not help but laugh. This stupid system's intelligence was becoming more and more problematic. The next day, Liu Chuanyue's family, who were supposed to come in the afternoon, came in the morning. In addition to Liu Chunyu, Tang Liping also came. He was the leader of the family Tang, Tang Li's elder brother, and Tang Guo's uncle. The other one was Tang Jiming, Tang Guo's cousin. He was 23 this year, 1 year older than Tang Guo. Above him was his sister, Tang Lanxin. The 3 of them appeared with a bag of fruits. Song Jinghua and Tang Lide warmly invited the 3 of them in. Xiao Guo, go and unwrap the candies for your cousin and the rest to eat. Song Jinghua called out, I'm going to buy groceries. She turned around and said to Liu Chunyu, sister-in-law, have a seat first. We'll cook when we're back with the groceries. Liu Chunyu quickly stood up and said with a smile, Jinghua, that's too much trouble for you. Let's go buy it together. Let's cook together later. We can't possibly wait for you to cook for us, right? Song Jinghua did not refuse. The 2 of them chatted and laughed as they went out. Liu Chunyu, who seemed to be very satisfied, went to buy groceries with her. The system heard the dissatisfaction in Tang Guo's sneer and could not help but ask, Host, do you have any objections to Liu Chunyu doing this? Chapter 1226. If my mom goes to buy groceries alone, she'll definitely bargain. Even if she doesn't buy the cheapest, she'll still choose the most affordable ones. She won't buy too much either, just enough to eat. If Liu Chunyu comes along, she'll definitely tell my mom that this one is good. My mom won't be able to refuse, so she can only buy them all. Liu Chunyu will pretend to pay, but my mom will definitely pay before she does. Just wait and see. In the end, they'll come back with a lot of fish and meat. When the time comes, they might even let Liu Chunyu bring the leftovers back to eat. System, is that even possible? Cousin, I heard that you're going on a road trip. Tang Guo sat beside Tang Jiming. Many people say that road trips are very tiring and require a lot of planning. I think that if you want to bring sister-in-law along, you might as well sign up for a tour group. It won't be so tiring and it'll be safer. Tang Jiming smiled and said, Xiao Guo, you don't know, but road trips are very interesting. It's especially troublesome to go with a tour group. I want to bring sister-in-law along to play and be free. Moreover, she also wants to go on a road trip. I can't possibly refuse her such a small request, right? Tang Guo thought to herself, you can comply with her wishes, but that's your girlfriend, not hers. Moreover, borrowing a car is a taboo, and it's a road trip. If something goes wrong, won't this matter be blamed on the car owner? It doesn't make sense to take advantage of others. She didn't say these words. When dealing with such a thick-skinned person, it didn't make sense to say anything more. As for telling Tang Jiming these things, it was just a polite persuasion. If he listened, then he would be lucky. If he didn't, then he deserved it. She would give anyone a chance to change. Now that it seemed that he was going to give up this chance, she could only express her regret. Sorry, she was a cold and hard-hearted person. She wasn't responsible for other people's lives. Cousin, actually, road trips are really not safe. Tang Jiming frowned unhappily. Xiao Guo, do you not want to lend me your car? I heard from Mom that we have to come over personally to discuss this. We're all on the same side. Xiao Guo, aren't you being too unkind by doing this? Have you forgotten that I was the one who helped you when you were bullied by the class next door when you were young? Tang Guo recalled for a moment and was speechless. It was obvious that Tang Jiming had provoked the head of the class next door. He knew that she was Tang Jiming's cousin, so he came to find trouble with her. In the end, he found Tang Jiming and beat him up. In the end, the news spread that Tang Jiming had been beaten up by the bully from the next class because he had tried to help her. Because of this incident, Tang Jiming's image in the eyes of the entire Tang family and Tang Lide and his wife were very good. Tang Jiming was good at talking and coaxing, so he was very likable. As long as something happened to him, Tang Leader and his wife would run even faster than Tang Jiming's parents. Even if the original owner was sick, it was not as important as Tang Jiming. Cousin, I just feel that it's very troublesome to borrow a car. Tang Guo frowned and said, also, after buying a car, the older I get, the more I feel that there's no need to buy a car. If I don't wake up early in the morning, I'll be stuck in traffic. I've almost been late a few times. Tang Jiming immediately said, since you don't need Xiao Guo, you can lend it to me for a few days. It won't affect you anyway, and it's indeed more convenient to take the subway or bus to work. Chapter 12:27. If you drive, you'll be late. You might as well not drive. If you leave it aside, it'll be scrapped. You might as well lend it to me. Why is it a new car? I haven't driven it for long. Tang Guo pursed her lips. But I don't need it now. If I don't drive it, I spent so much money to buy it. I haven't even finished paying off the money for the car. I still have to save money to pay off my colleague. Tang Jiming was surprised. You borrowed money to buy the car? Yes. My parents said that I'm already an adult and can't ask them for everything. Also, this car is a consumable. I used the salary I saved for the past 2 years and the money I borrowed from my colleague. Finally, I can buy it. Tang Guo said in a low voice, I still owe my colleague 100,000 yuan. I have to pay it off within the next year. You owe so much. Yes. Tang Guo frowned. When she looked at Tang Jiming, her eyes lit up. Cousin, I actually thought of a way to get the best of both worlds. 1 ton and 1 ti what way? Since you want to use the car, why don't I sell it to you? How about it? I don't want to drive to work now, but I want to pay off the debt as soon as possible. The car is new. It cost 200,000 yuan. We're family, so I'll sell it to you for 150,000 yuan. I bought this car 2 months ago and haven't driven it many times. It's really new. But this is considered a second-hand car. 150,000 yuan is really too much. From Tang Jiming's expression, Tang Guo could see that he was tempted. System, host, you're losing money. I never thought of taking advantage of him. I just want to throw this hot potato away so that I don't get into trouble. The system thought of the plot later and fell silent. Yes, it couldn't tell now. A month later, this car would be a hot potato. It would have to be sold. It had to be sold to Tang Jiming. Little Guo, in fact, I quite like your car, but 150,000 yuan is really expensive. Tang Jiming said. If that's the case, I might as well add some money and buy a new one. In fact, in his heart, he just wanted Tang Guo to reduce the price a bit, or even simply give it to him. Cousin, I also owe money. I have to pay it off, right? If I didn't owe money, I could give this car to you. My parents said that you were good to me when I was young. If I didn't have a choice, why would I be so calculative with you? You also know that my salary is only a few thousand yuan. It will take me 2 to 3 years to clear my debt. Tang Jiming really wanted this car. It had only been driven for 2 months, so it was practically new. He said in a low voice, "Less. If I had enough money, I wouldn't have asked you to lend me your car, right? How about 100,000? Just enough to clear the debt. How about it?" Tang Jiming said, "Cousin Xiao Guo, I still have to scrape together $100,000. If not for your sister-in-law, I wouldn't be in such a hurry. 110,000 yuan. Is that okay?" "Cousin, I really don't have money now." Tang Jiming thought about it. Reducing it from 200,000 yuan to 110,000 yuan was actually not bad. This was a car that cost 200,000 yuan. He had only seen her drive it a few times. "Okay, then I'll go back and get some money." "Cousin, hurry up. Then we'll go and transfer the ownership. But before that, I plan to check the car and get a certificate of maintenance. We're family. I don't want you to lose out. You can rest assured that I'll get a certificate of maintenance. I'll pay for the maintenance. How about it?" Chapter 12:28. When Tang Jiming heard that he didn't need to spend his own money, he quickly said, "Okay, let's do that. After we eat, I'll discuss it with my mom." Not long after, Song Jinghua and Liu Chunyu came back from buying groceries. The system saw that their hands were full of groceries and they almost couldn't hold them all. Especially when Liu Chunyu had a chicken hanging around her neck. The system silently complained that its host was really good at predicting things. "Jinghua, you're too polite. Every time we come, you buy so many groceries," Liu Chunyu said as she carried the groceries into the kitchen. "I'm a little embarrassed." "Sister-in-law, what are you talking about? You don't come here often. Aren't you just buying some food? Even if you don't come, we still have to buy some. Since we're here, we'll buy more. What's there to be embarrassed about?" Although Song Jinghua was distressed about spending so much money to buy so many things, she thought that since they were all family, it wasn't a big deal. Liu Chunyu said that Song Jinghua was a good person and liked to be close to her. She bragged about Song Jinghua, making Song Jinghua feel a lot better. The two of them were busy cooking and had only used up a little less than half of the ingredients. During the meal, Tang Jiming mentioned that he had just discussed buying a car with Tang Guo. Liu Chuanyue's eyes lit up, but she said awkwardly, "Is it really 110,000? Auntie, if it weren't for the fact that I really couldn't make ends meet, I wouldn't have bought the car so hastily. I could have just given it to him." Tang Guo raised her head and said, "I really regret buying the car now. I want to pay off the debt now." Tang Li quickly said, "We're all family. Why do you have to do so much? Xiao Guo, if you don't drive the car, just lend it to your brother Jiming. Isn't that good?" "System, that's too embarrassing. This car originally belonged to Xiao Guo." Liu Chunyu wanted to say something but was interrupted by Tang Guo. Tang Guo nodded. "Dad, Auntie already said that she's sorry. Don't make things difficult for her. Also, I'm still in debt. The car originally cost 200,000, but cousin is a family member, so the price was reduced to 110,000. I just discussed it with him. If the First Lady's family is really in trouble, I'll have to sell the car somewhere else. Perhaps he could sell it for some money. As for the car that you need next month, there are actually many places that rent cars now. Not to mention a car like mine that is only worth 200,000 yuan, you can even rent a luxury car that is worth millions. When sister-in-law sees that you are so thoughtful, she will definitely be very happy. Liu Chuanyue's expression changed. Let's forget about renting a luxury car. If something goes wrong, we won't be able to afford it. She looked at Tang Guo and said, Xiao Guo, is it really 110,000 yuan? Without waiting for Tang Guo to speak, she continued, didn't you say you owed 100,000 yuan? How about 100,000? We're all family. Don't hurt our relationship because of this 10,000 yuan. Chun Yu, it's not easy for Xiao Guo either. 110,000 yuan is fine. Do you really need 10,000 yuan? In order for Jiming to marry a wife, we have to fork out the 110,000 yuan. Xiao Guo's car is still new. He hasn't driven it many times. Where can we find such a cheap car nowadays? The person who spoke was Tang Guo's uncle, Tang Liping. Before Tang Guo could speak, Tang Li quickly said, I think 100,000 yuan is fine. Big brother, don't blame sister-in-law. Both of you are worried sick about Jiming's marriage. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiao Guo, this prodigal girl, borrowed money to buy the car, I wouldn't have any objections to giving it to Jiming. The Apex. Chapter 1229. Tang Liping's words were both true and false, but Tang Guo's father, Tang Li, was sincere. If she hadn't said that they owed 100,000 yuan and that the company had only instant noodles for lunch, he would have agreed to give the car to Tang Jiming. Those who didn't know better would have thought that Tang Jiming was his son. The matter was settled just like that. When Liu Chuanyue's family left, Song Jinghua was indeed very enthusiastic. She asked them to take away most of the unfinished ingredients. Of course, Liu Chunyu also took away the chicken that was worth 150 yuan. Tang Guo looked at the kitchen and saw that there were only some vegetables left. She didn't want to say anything. She looked at the two spendthrifts in the living room who were still discussing whether they were doing the wrong thing. They said that Liu Chunyu and her husband had been worried sick about Tang Jiming recently. They were worried that it would be too difficult for them to gather 100,000 yuan. If it really wasn't possible, they would give them some subsidies. Tang Guo rolled her eyes and went into the room to close the door. System, host, they are so generous. Don't they feel bad about the money? Of course they do. But they care more about the kinship between their siblings. From what they know, they shouldn't destroy their relationship because of money. They didn't think that eldest uncle's family is actually richer than our family. Then we'll let them continue to give. The system couldn't make any comments about these two people. Tang Guo lay on the bed and narrowed her eyes. I've said before that we'll let them have nowhere to go and lead a wandering life. Anyway, with me around, they won't starve to death. The system trembled. It had forgotten that its host was never soft-hearted. Next, if someone tries to take advantage of them, I'll give them a few words of advice. If they don't listen, then forget it. If they don't listen, then they can enjoy the hard days ahead. Host, don't forget that there's still a scumbag behind. That murderer. I won't forget. No matter who I forget, I can't forget someone who has a grudge against me. System, then pretend that he didn't remind you. A few days later, Tang Guo took Tang Jiming to have his car repaired. Of course, there was nothing wrong with the car. Tang Guo even asked the other party for 2 reports, one for herself and the other for Tang Jiming. She even took photos. During the transfer, it was also stated that the parts of the car were all in good condition at the time of the transaction. There were no problems at all. After settling all the procedures, Tang Jiming became the driver. He sat in the driver's seat and said to Tang Guo, Cousin Xiao Guo, do you want me to send you back? No, cousin, I still have to return the money to my colleague. It just so happens that I have an appointment with the other party today. Since he has helped me so much, I also plan to treat his colleagues to a meal. Of course, this was a lie. If that's the case, then I'll be leaving. It was obvious that Tang Jiming was very happy. From the way he looked, it seemed like he wanted to drive around. Cousin, be careful when you drive. In fact, I think it's best to travel with a tour group. Tang were reminded for the last time. Of course, Tang Jiming didn't listen to her and drove away. Tang Guo waved her small hand and was about to turn around and call for a taxi. At this moment, a man in a suit and leather shoes walked over. He looked very energetic and was even carrying a briefcase. This man was handsome. When he smiled, he looked especially good. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1230. When Tang Guo saw him walking towards her, she did not plan to leave. She stood there and waited for him to come to her. Hello, beautiful young lady. Tang Guo smiled and greeted him. Hello, handsome. What can I do for you? If you want my phone number, I will refuse. Young lady, you are really smart. I did plan to ask for your phone number when we end the conversation, the man said. But it sounds like you don't intend to give it to me. I don't like to reveal my phone number to a stranger. Young lady, you are very cautious. You are right to do this, the man said. But I am not a bad person. Bad people never say that they are bad people, Tang Guo said. Then, handsome, why are you looking for me? The man looked at the cars coming and going on both sides and asked, Young lady, what do you think of life? Handsome, do you want to discuss life with me as soon as you arrive? Do you want to understand my views and get closer to me? Tang Guo asked curiously. The man smiled but did not say anything. Young lady, you haven't answered my question. Your question is too general. I can't answer it. Which aspect of life are you referring to? The man smiled and turned to Tang Guo and said seriously, Of course it is life and death and personal safety. System, I keep feeling that something is wrong. Tang Guo, she felt it too. Life and death, let nature take its course. As for personal safety, do your best and leave it to fate. The man chuckled. Young lady, you are really optimistic, but there are many things in life that are unpredictable. No one will live a smooth life. Many people can have their peaceful and happy lives destroyed because of an accident, especially ordinary people. This is especially true for ordinary people. When things happen, they realize that fate is out of their control. At the same time, for some reason, they have no choice but to use all their courage to fight against fate. They will not rest until they die. System, Tang Guo, young lady, did you see the ambulance rushing into the hospital just now? The man suddenly asked. Tang Guo did not miss it. She nodded and said, I saw it. Does it have anything to do with our topic? Of course, the man continued as he looked at the hospital opposite. At that moment, another ambulance drove over. The medical staff rushed out and carefully carried the injured person down. Beside the injured person was a woman who was crying. That's an unforeseen accident in life. Miss, do you see those people standing at the entrance of the hospital with sad faces? Tang Guo only nodded. What happened to them? They also encountered many unexpected accidents. For example, a healthy family member suddenly fell seriously ill. Or, if there were any accidents, they would not be able to bear the consequences. Such a heavy burden, even if it was on them and they couldn't catch their breath, they had no choice but to bear it and continue walking. Bitter and helpless. So, handsome, what are you trying to say? The man came back to his senses and opened his briefcase. Miss, I'm sure you've gained some insight into life and understand that these accidents are inevitable, right? Then, the man took out a booklet. Miss, buy an insurance policy for your life. Vertex. Chapter 1231. With insurance against all kinds of accidents, no matter what happens in the future, there will be someone to bear all of it for you and accompany you for the rest of your life. With this, you will never have to worry about any accidents in your life, the man said very seriously. System, Fut Tang Guo. After talking for so long, it turned out that he was selling insurance. Tang Guo didn't say anything. She stared at the man and said, Handsome, I'm really tempted by what you said. Then, miss, do you want to buy one? There are many kinds of packages here for you to choose from. I guarantee that there will be one that suits you very well. Tang Guo continued, although what you said tempted me, I have the heart but not the strength. What's wrong? I don't have the money to buy it. Tang Guo looked at him eagerly. I really don't have the money, but I'm very tempted. Handsome, I feel that we are more congenial. I really want to buy your insurance. If you don't mind, and treat me as a friend, can you lend me some money? System, did you learn to be so thick-skinned from Liu Chuanyue's family? A certain man. Lend her money to buy insurance. He glanced at Tang Guo. She was a little good-looking, but she could not commit murder just because she was good-looking, right? He had heard that his subordinates often told him that the insurance business was getting more and more difficult recently, and the competition was getting more and more intense. He planned to do it personally and see how difficult it was to do a few orders, and at the same time understand the customer's needs. In one morning, he completed 3 or 4 orders, and did not find it difficult. So, it must be that his subordinates wanted to slack off, which was why they said it was difficult. However, the situation that he encountered in the last round was something that he did not expect. It was also the first time he heard someone say that they were tempted but did not have the money. Could he lend her some money to buy it? Is it very difficult? Tang Guo held back her laughter and asked. The man glanced at her. Miss, actually, we're not very familiar with each other, right? For something like borrowing money, we have to be very familiar with each other. It's not like borrowing money after just meeting and chatting for a while. We still don't know the other party's name. It's best not to have this kind of financial relationship between the two of us. You're right. Tang Guo agreed. Then let's introduce ourselves. When we're familiar with each other, I'll borrow money from you. A certain man. Is this even possible? You aren't sure. However, he was very honest and told her his name. She didn't know if it was because he was too used to it, but he directly took out a gold-stamped business card and gave it to her. This is my business card. When he did this, Yuan Shuo froze for a moment, but now that he had taken it out, he couldn't take it back. Tang Guo took the business card and said casually, Tang Guo. She glanced at the name card and communicated with the system. It's actually the CEO of an insurance company. Is it so difficult to work in the insurance industry now? Even the CEO had to come out personally to solicit business. He was handsome and eloquent. If it was someone else, I reckon he would have succeeded. CEO Yuan is really dedicated. Tang Guo put the business card in her bag and took out her phone with a smile. She flashed a number to the other party. CEO Yuan, let's keep in touch in the future. When we're familiar with each other and become friends, you have to lend me money to buy insurance. Yuan sure. Should he not have looked for her? His fingers were very honest. He took out his phone and saved her number. CEO Yuan, I still have something to do. See you next time. Remember, let's keep in touch and become friends soon. Yuan sure, lend you money to buy insurance again? That would be a huge loss for him. Fu Pin Mandarin Peak. Chapter 1232. Tang Guo turned around and hailed a taxi. Sir, let's go to the nearest bank. What was she going to do? Of course, she was going to apply for a new card and deposit the money in it. Debts and whatnot were all fake. At the same time, she was going to transfer her other assets into the new card. Yuan Shuo looked at the woman who had left and glanced at the number and name on the phone. He chuckled and shook his head. He felt that today's encounter was a little strange. He did not intend to continue investigating the insurance business. He went to the parking lot and drove the brand new Maybach back to the company. After opening the online banking service, Tang Guo threw the card away. System. Why did she throw the card away? Don't mess it up. When the time comes and they ask for money, some people might be shameless enough to take out my wallet and ask me to show them if I have any money in my card. When I go back, I'll put the money in the new card into the stock market. Then I'll be safe. Tang Guo seemed to have seen through the system's doubts and answered. In the face of shameless people, Only by being more shameless could she live happily. System, okay, he understood. The system analyzed silently. It seemed that the host had suffered a big loss and lost 100,000 yuan in one go. However, after understanding what happened later, he knew that this was called recovering the loss. Otherwise, there would be nothing left and she would have to pay a huge sum of money. After returning home, Tang Guo left some living expenses and threw all the money into the stock market. She had lived for so many years and was basically right at a glance when it came to things like making money in the stock market. Of course, she did not want to make a lot of money. In this life, she could not be too rich, at least on the surface. But she also had to ensure that she could take it out when she needed it. System, there are so many treasures in the space. You can buy a lot of villas just by selling a few. The host is too serious. Unless it is a last resort, she really will not use the things in the system space. What do you know? I don't need those things to save my life. I can live well with the abilities in my head. There's no need for me to take those things, even though they all belong to me. I'm worried. You don't have a factory date or address, and you don't have a warranty card. If you break it, I'll become lazy and don't want to do anything. What should I do next? You have to be vigilant in times of peace so that you can remain calm in the face of danger. The system panicked and hurriedly explained, Host, I don't think I'm easily spoiled. Look, you didn't even directly say that you won't break. Instead, you said that you won't break easily. This means that you can't guarantee that you won't break. System, Host, I shouldn't be bad. Tang Guo said, but there's still a chance. System, he really can't say. He's definitely not bad. Alright, host wins. Don't worry, if you're really broken, I'll find a way to fix you. Tang Guo comforted the system in a soft voice. The system's originally low mood suddenly improved. As expected, the host treated him the best, the system thought happily. Oh right, host, was that man just now your DA cutie? The system was unable to identify that guy who transmigrated without his memory, but his host was always right. She had never been wrong in so many worlds. The other party came up to strike up a conversation. As a stranger, he was able to make the host smile and talk to him. This meant that the host's initial impression of him was not bad. Moreover, the host seemed to be in a good mood. His energy had also increased. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1233. Then, it was very likely that Yuan Shuo was him. Yes. Tang Guo admitted, this guy is really involved in all walks of life. This time, he has become an insurance seller. Host, he is the CEO of an insurance company. This time, he is probably out to experience the people's livelihood. Looking at his mouth, many people will be fooled by him to buy it. Tang Guo's lips curled up. Maybe he has already made several orders before me. Host, you keep saying that you want to get familiar with him and buy insurance with him. Aren't you afraid that he will be scared away? If he is scared away, I will flirt with him again and coax him back. Tang Guo said with a smile, when the time comes, I will buy a few more insurance. System, okay, he admits defeat. Ever since she sold the car to Tang Jiming, Tang Guo had been living peacefully for the past month. Other than people coming over from time to take advantage of her, there was nothing else major. Tang Li and Song Jinghua welcomed anyone who came. They thought that they were their own family and would grant them almost any request. Today, this person would borrow some money, and tomorrow, that person would borrow some money and leave. This person would ask them for help, and that person would ask them for trouble. The two of them were not busy with work, but because of these things, they became busy people. When Tang Guo was around, when someone came to borrow money, she would casually say, Dad, Mom, our family doesn't have much money left. There are still so many days left in the month. Do you want to leave some living expenses? Of course, the two of them would ignore her. After borrowing the money and leaving, the two of them would say to her, we are all family. If we can help, we will help. Whose family doesn't have accidents? Yeah, those families have accidents every month. Only our family eats bran and wild vegetables. Tang Li shook his head. You little girl, the older you get, the more selfish you become. This is not good. Xiao Guo, we are all family. Can you really bear to see them suffer? Tang Guo did not try to persuade them anymore. These two definitely had some money in their hands and did not live a hard life. If it were not for people coming to take advantage of her every day, it would not be like this. He helped his nephew buy a house and was busy lending money to his niece to get married. They had never thought that their biological daughter had previously said that she owed a debt. They would always say that when she died, the property and the house would all belong to her. Tang Guo had a deep suspicion that by the time they left this world, all of their assets would be gone. Xiao Guo, have you forgotten that when you graduated, it was your cousin who drove you to look for a job in the summer? If it were an outsider, would they help you? Song Jinghua said. Chapter 1234. Anyway, Tang Guo had never thought that Song Jinghua and Tang Li, these two idiots, would be persuaded by her with just a few words. In their eyes, the kinship between siblings was the most important thing. Even she, as their daughter, had to take a back seat. It was just that out of habit, she would remind them every time. It could be considered as giving them a deeper impression so that in the future, when they recalled the past, they would regret their actions even more. If they never reflected on their actions, she had said that she would not let them starve to death on the streets. As for the days of wealth and happiness, she was afraid that there would be no more. After all, the entire family had been given away by them. Just like that, a month passed. Finally, it was time for Tang Jiming to take his girlfriend on a road trip. Ever since she sold the car to Tang Jiming, Tang Guo had not kept in touch with him. In the morning, when she was preparing to leave, she heard her mother nagging about how she hoped that Tang Jiming's marriage this time would be successful. Tang Guo thought about what was going to happen next and guessed how everyone would react as she stood at the bus stop and waited for the bus. Yes, now that she did not have a car, she could only take the bus to work. At this moment, a car stopped not too far ahead. Her phone rang with 3 words on the screen: "Insurance bro." She smiled and picked up the phone. "CEO Yuan. What are you doing?" "I'm waiting for the bus on the way to work," Tang Guo replied. "After all, I'm different from CEO Yuan. I drive everywhere." Yuan sure. He actually really wanted to ask. Didn't she say that they should keep in touch in the future? He was already prepared for her to call and harass him. He did not expect that for almost a month, she would not call him at all, not even a single message. He felt that this woman was poisonous. He actually thought about when she would call him every day to talk about becoming friends and borrowing money to buy insurance. This morning, he drove to the office as usual. He did not expect to see her standing at the bus stop by accident. His fingers did not listen to the truth and dialed her number. Since it was already dialed, he could not hang up. "How about I give you a ride?" Yuan Shore said. After he finished speaking, he wanted to slap himself. Wasn't he trying to build a relationship with them? After they became friends, it would lead them to borrow money from him to buy insurance. Tang Guo immediately replied, "Sure, CEO Yuan. Are you nearby?" "Yes." After Yuan Shore told her the location, Tang Guo found it and greeted him with a smile. "Mr. Yuan, what a coincidence. You are such a nice person. I'm sure I'll be very happy to be your friend." "CEO Yuan, do you have a girlfriend?" Yuan Shore said uneasily, "No. Why are you asking this?" "Could it be that you want to hit on him and become his girlfriend so that you can buy insurance without spending money? That's good." Tang Guo sat in the front passenger seat and fastened her seatbelt. "I heard that you can't sit in the front passenger seat of a man who has a girlfriend. It will ruin their relationship." "Miss Tang, you're quite smart. If I had a girlfriend, I wouldn't have hit on you. After having a girlfriend, it was best to keep a safe distance from the opposite sex and not give them any chances. If I had a girlfriend, I would have pretended not to see you and driven past you." Tang Guo said with a smile, CEO Yuan is really a principled person. Oh right, CEO Yuan, if you have a girlfriend, do you need money to buy insurance? Yuan Shao almost lost his grip on the steering wheel and said quickly, yes, you need money. Business is business. Vertex. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.